thinking through some of the keys for South Carolina, right? And man, if we would just want to get super surface level, like, gosh, if we were putting up a graphic, if you and I were calling the game, I would be so silly as to put up like score points. Like, that's obvious, right? Again, I feel like the same way that I have against Alabama and Ole Miss, where you don't want to get out of this game and say, man, Carolina played pretty well on defense, but eventually ran out of gas. Or, Carolina played pretty well on defense, but you're not going to hold a Texas A&M, an Ole Miss, a Bama. Realistically, you're not holding those teams to 14, 17, probably even 21 points. And so do you need a really good defensive performance? Absolutely. You're going to have to put forth a better effort than many teams have put forth against A&M this year. But I keep thinking about South Carolina's offense, and can you unlock what's been missing from this team? And to be clear, there's been a lot missing, whether it's themes that we've seen all year, protecting the quarterback, missed opportunities, decision-making, or just things that have at times been there, here and there, that have not been consistent, right? The passing game, the running game. Can you put together a more complete performance? And so I think you could think of a bunch of little like micro keys in terms of how you're going to do that. But I think you have to hit some explosive plays and you have to stay ahead of the chains. This is not a situation, again, this is not a team built to get into 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12. Even though they've hit some explosive plays this year in those categories against one of the nation's top pass rushes, maybe the top pass rush, like you said, Wes, that's not where you want to live. So you're going to have to run the football. You're going to have to stay ahead of the chains. I think you're going to have to, you talked about this week, you're going to have to break your tendencies to the extent that you've had tendencies this year. And you're going to have to do some things to keep A&M as much as you can off balance, because you got to move the ball and score points to have a chance in this one. And I think you also want special teams to be even. A lot of years you go into this thing with a Shane Beamer coach team saying, all right, special teams can be an advantage. Can you make it an advantage? Well, hasn't been as much the case this year. Some other teams have done some good things against South Carolina from a special team standpoint. We know A&M's very capable with either fakes or in the return game, right? They're dangerous there. If you're South Carolina, can you flip that script and make some good things happen on special teams on the road too? I think you're going to need all three of those phases to kind of orchestrate a turnaround and be a net positive for you in order to score this upset.
Yeah, I think you got to, Vicari's going to have another day, I feel like. Like, this feels like one of those games. I'll say this, man. So it is 11 a.m. kickoff local time for A&M. You remember early in the Alabama game, even though South Carolina was not, didn't really take control of the game, you were kind of going, well, the blueprint is still here for South Carolina to win this game. Like, this is playing out to where even with that pick six, you're going, they're hanging around in this football game. And, some games you're going, well, this, there's a laundry list of things that have to happen for you to win the game. And by 10 minutes into the game, the blueprint has just been crumpled up, thrown away, and you're going, all right, you knew this team didn't have a great shot, and now the shot is even less, and it's just not going to happen today. So I think it starts with you're coming out with a new OC. Beamer has talked about the confidence that Mike Furry carries, just the little different mindset he brings, and you're talking about an A&M team that has, probably not scared of you at all looking at your record. I think this feels like another easy layup is start fast, but if you don't start this game slow if you're South Carolina and win it, in my opinion. Like, you need something good to happen early. You need A&M to be sleepwalking a little bit. You need to go in there and kind of just have that little drive at the beginning of a game when you're the road team and the home team kind of looks around like, that was a little bit easier than I thought it should be. Where did that come from? And then, your sideline gets going a little bit. And so I think there is a path to win any game you play in football. Fortunately for South Carolina, this one is narrow. And so you're going to have to check boxes every single step of the way. But my first check box is not only do you need to survive the first quarter, I think you need to take control. We talk about the middle 8. I think you got to control the first 8 in this game. And just, Gamecock fans need to be on their Twitter fingers talking about, hey, I'm in, I'm tuned in. The SEC Shorts Hope, where she just shows up out of nowhere. They need for Hope to be showing up on the Gamecock sideline and on the shoulders of Gamecocks sitting at home everywhere. That would be the first step for me. If you want to get even more technical, I was thinking about the fact also in the injury report, Jaden Sellers is back. It got me thinking about more. You have some depth at that slot receiver spot. Brian Rowe, to me, looked as comfortable and as good as he probably has at all since he got here 2 weeks ago against Ole Miss. I think your wide receivers have got to go make some plays for you in this game, man. We're going to talk about the O-line, of course, and dealing with sorting out all the different pressures and looks they're going to give you. The only way to truly, I feel neutralize some of that is to get early wins one-on-one on the outside. What I mean by wins is the receiver wins that one-on-one battle and the ball gets out quick. So are there some wrinkles that Furry has put in to get those guys going? Can you get I think the best jump ball receiver on this team, we really haven't gotten to see it much yet, would be Donovan Murph. He's a natural pass catcher. I think the best short burst separator on this team is Brian Rowe. You saw a little bit of that 2 weeks ago, not a ton. I think the wide receivers have got to have a day. I think you're going to have to get the ball out to them. I think the running backs in the passing game, you're going to have to throw to set up the run in this game, I think. It kind of call it backwards a little bit. So can any of those things hit early on? Because it's kind of weird, man. You mentioned how A&M defensively has given up plays, has given up some big days here and there. Their splits are just crazy. Their defensive numbers, rushing, kind of middle of the pack. But you look, UTSA, they gave up 6.15 yards a carry. Then you look, Utah State, 2.2 yards a carry. Notre Dame, 3.4 yards a carry. Auburn, Mississippi State in the 2s. Florida, the low 3s. LSU, 2.22 yards per carry. They had 60 yards on 27 carries. You're going, dude, this is a phenomenal run defense. Then you look at Arkansas and at Missouri, gave a 8.34 a pop to Arkansas and 6.09 a pop to Missouri. Arkansas with 268 yards rushing and Missouri with 207 yards rushing. So I don't know what those teams did that the other teams didn't. I know Missouri popped one or two, and I know Jackson Callaway said they've given up an explosive here or there. I feel like you're going to need Matt Fuller circa LSU's 70-yard blast down the sideline if you're going to win this game, right? You're going to need Perry Orth taking off. How many years ago was that when Perry just out of nowhere hit the that was just a QB draw, wasn't it?
Yeah. Man was rolling. It was awesome.
Mean, you can dream up some ways for this to happen, but it's just got to be a lot of check boxes, right?
A lot of check boxes. Well, and I think that's one of the frustrating things about the offense is a lot of people, and I'll put myself in that category. Sometimes you're looking at it going, geez, it seems an awful lot like some other teams offensively have been able in key situations to scheme up at least the possibility of some easy wins in the passing game. Think about what Oklahoma did, right? They're just out there. Here's a hitch, pitch and catch. Don't have to hold the ball for 4 seconds. Don't have it, and you look at Carolina, and this is not a blanket statement where they've run this on every play, but we've all seen, hey, they're in 3rd and 4. Why are all the routes downfield? And things like that. Mike Furry, maybe as a receivers coach, he might have a little bit more of a mentality of let's let our guys go make some plays. You're gonna have to make them. Texas A&M, they'll mix up man and zone. There's going to be man-to-man opportunities. Can you beat a guy deep? Can you give your receivers some easier routes to take the pressure off of that conversation that we're having about A&M's defensive front versus Carolina's offensive front? Can you loosen some things up? You're going to have to get some one-on-one wins. Got to let players make plays, and that's been one of the frustrations for this offense. Is while it's not the most talented offense in the country by any means, you feel like you've got some players who are at least capable of getting some of those one-on-one wins that we just haven't seen, consistently enough.
Yeah, and man, it really it's going to be tough, but you never know. That's the beauty of football. We'll see what happens. I had one more thing, and then I completely lost my train of thought. Let's, I guess, let's give our final predictions, man. Will anybody on the Gamecock Central 107.5 prediction contest, will anybody pick the upset, you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so, Wes.
If anybody does, it'll be Kendall Smith.
Think so?
Yeah.
I
don't think she will, but if she does, it'll be her.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll go ahead. I will not be picking South Carolina. I mean, I think this is an A&M team that, while not as battle tested as even South Carolina or some other SEC teams have been, they've done what you do. You go through. They've had a couple close wins over Notre Dame, a close win over Arkansas, but they've passed all their tests. And this is a South Carolina team where we've spent all of this show coming up with trying to architect the path of this thing, and given where both teams are, like, it is a tougher path. I think the fair pick, given what we've seen, at least in my mind, is to go with Texas A&M. I've got Texas A&M 31, South Carolina 20. So a little lower than the line, right, Wes? Carolina doing a little bit more offensively than maybe they have in some other road instances, but still at the end of the day, not quite enough. We'll see. That's my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I actually said 31-21. I mean, I typically do not pick blowouts anyway, but, on paper, man, you'd have to really, really be seeing some just crystal ball, seeing the future, I feel like, to pick South Carolina and to be really confident in it right now. Like, you'd have to have woke up in the middle of the night with a dream of what was happening. So just on paper, there's too many different things that go against South Carolina in this game for you to effectively pick them. I think what I'd really like to see and what I'm curious to see is just an offense that finds some rhythm. Can Carolina go out there and give them a fight? And I know that's one of those things where people say, oh, yeah, if we just compete, I'll be happy. But then if you compete and don't win the game, ain't nobody happy. We saw that against Alabama. I just hope we keep it close. No, once you get the thing close, you want to win the dang thing. Yep. If Carolina had hung on in that game, you're looking at least going bowling, So if you get in that spot, forget moral victory, go win the thing. So but I do think this is a game where everything's going to have to go their way for them to find a way to, if they're going to find any way to win it. But we'll see. Maybe, just maybe, we finally get the Lenora Sellers go-off game this year that we saw several times last year. Although, Chris, I kind of got a feeling the Aggies took last year personally a little bit. Like, how has South Carolina just under Beamer had such a knack for becoming team Super Bowls?
I mean, Marcel Reed talked about that. He said it was personal, and it wasn't specifically, oh, it's the Gamecocks. It's more of, hey, they're one of the teams that kept us out of the playoff. We were on a good run. They beat us, kind of caused us to hit a slide. And, Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt, same thing. He felt like, whatever reasons he may have, I don't want to speak for him, that was probably his worst game last year. And so I think it's just kind of worked out that way when you beat teams, and maybe you expect to, when you lose to teams and you expect to beat them, that can kind of make it personal. So I mean, it's a good thing that teams are circling you more, for sure. Like, you want to be there, but you also want to be in position where you can answer that call. And South Carolina obviously has not had the season that they wanted to in that regard. Maybe they can turn that around next year, Wes, and they can be the one circling games and making them personal.
It is kind of cyclical, it seems. And I did want to throw this out here. This is what I forgot to mention earlier, man. A&M has one of the best third down defenses I have ever seen statistically. And it actually reminds you a little bit of a couple of those Kirby Smart defenses where they were just really, really rolling. But right now, teams are converting just 24% of their third downs. I caught wind of this. It's probably 2 or 3 games ago. At one point this year, about halfway through, opponents were converting 19% of their third down. So that's actually gone up a little bit the last few weeks. But regardless of opponent, that is an insane number, and one that South Carolina, they've not been good offensively at converting third downs. You have to flip that, man. You have to find a way. And I think that's something ultimately going back to something we touched on earlier. If I'm Shane Beamer going into the offseason, what do I sort of value in an offensive coordinator? I want a guy that can scheme things up on third downs, can put you in a position to convert third downs, and can do the same in the red zone. Because right now, third downs, red zones, turnovers are what are winning and losing football games in the SEC. And so we'll see if South Carolina can flip the script on any of those things this week. Parker Fleming's stats say A&M is second in the country in third and fourth down success on defense. So they get you off the field. That's why they are, once again, another opponent for South Carolina that is very good in time of possession. So Gamecocks, not great in time of possession. So just another of the many things we have put on your plate for you to watch going into this weekend's game if South Carolina is going to have any chance to win.